pull that down? Huh? Good morning, Gucci. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, there we go. We
Yeah,
got
there
it.
we go. Woo! We're all connected and hooked up there. Uh, yeah, I was just finishing up some last minute details here on the system at the station.
No problem.
Right on, right on. Well, to everyone out there, good morning and welcome to this week's edition of Positive Vibes, making positivity and gratitude louder in a podcast world. And this morning, as my guest, I have my friend Gucci, who is a phenomenal ultra marathon runner and just runner, period. And yeah, he gets out there and runs 100-mile ultra marathons with a mutual friend of ours, Super Sabrina, and yeah, he's just an amazing runner, and I wanted to have him on my show, and so here he is. Welcome, Gucci.
Hey, Shane, thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you very much for being here on my show. Um, Sorry you couldn't make it to the station, but hey, whatever, you're still on the show, so that's what matters.
Exactly.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I just wanted to essentially grill you about your running and everything, and so I see you around town every now and again. I'll be driving my car home from work, and I see you running down Schuster Parkway or whatever, back toward town, and it's like, whoa, there goes Gucci again. Or I'll see over by the Narrows Bridge, there he is again, and it's just like I know what it's like for me, but I want to know what it's like for you. Why do you run so much?
Yeah, it's I've been running for about 15 years, so a good chunk of my life. I'm 38 years old, so that's a pretty good amount. I started running pretty didn't run in high school or college or anything. I started running once I got back into the or out into the working world, and I just I put on some weight. That was my first year working in corporate America, and really wasn't living really healthy. So I kind of just changed my diet and started exercising. And it's like, well, I always tell people, it's like you don't have to run; you can walk. I started by walking. I was walking like 2 miles a day. That's how I got into running. And one day it just turned into like, oh, let me see if I can jog. Let me see if I can jog 3 miles. And it did. I did it, and I was like, wow, that felt really good. But yeah, it started out as physical fitness for me. It was just I'm not really good at any sports. I'm not really into any sports. I was playing golf, but that obviously wasn't enough of exercise to get me going. So I just started running, and by about 2 years into it, I was running like 40 miles a week, and my body felt really good, and it helped me with stress, and it helped me with anxiety, and it just helped me all around. And once I started doing that, I couldn't really stop. It just became part of my lifestyle. And that's where it's like running for me now. It's like going to bed, sleeping every day, or eating every day. It's like it's just something that is so integrated in my day-to-day life that I don't even really realize that like I don't have to set the time aside. It's just something I do. So, it started out as physical fitness, and then it turned into like, stress and anxiety management. And then it just kind of morphed into my lifestyle of how I choose to live my life. And yeah, it's brought me friends. It's brought me in community. I live in Tacoma largely because of running, from meeting people that lived here, and when I lived in Texas, and kind of traveling up here and running races. So it's really a huge, huge part of my life, and something I think I'll do as long as my body lets me. So
Right on. Yeah, that's that's pretty awesome. That's about how I got into it. Was actually how I got into it was, I just, yeah, I thought long distance running was crazy, and all you people were crazy for running, even these half marathons, and before I knew it, I was running full marathons and ultras, and yeah, meeting you and the rest of the running community around here, just I got sucked in, and it's like, okay, well, hey, this is awesome, running, and I just kept doing it, and here I am running every day now, 900, and today's day 904, and
Nice.
I definitely relate so much with that stress and anxiety management, just gets my body moving, and I'm focused on that, and everything else just melts away.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah,
It's magic.
yeah. And the health and fitness thing is like I was just commented on a friend's post this morning about she was talking about freedom and how running is freedom, and it's like stress management and all that, and I'm like, yeah, totally, total freedom. Even my MS disappears when I'm out there running. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I was super curious about your personal experience running 100-mile ultra marathon. It's like, what does that even classify as an ultra marathon, or does that classify as a beast mode on its own?
Yeah, it's still an ultra. So I've done 9 official 100s now, and I took me a while to get into them. I did my first one in 2017, so I'd been running distance races for about 10 years before I dove into the 100, which there's a lot of people that go dive in a lot earlier than I did, but it's a lot different. It's there's a very, very big mental side to it that really is what it's all about. So your body, nobody runs 100 miles without their body kind of totally failing them at some point. And you just have to kind of trick yourself and have the mental fortitude to be able to push through. So it's entirely a head game, and that's the difference between you finishing a 100 miler and you DNFing. So DNFing is did not finish, which I have a couple of those on my record from 100-mile attempts. There were a couple in mountain hundreds that I made it 100K, 60ish miles into, and just my head got to me, and I decided I didn't want to go anymore. But my body was perfectly capable of still moving during both of those. So um, yeah, it's a different concept. You just you wrap your head around the fact that you're going to be running for an entire day, basically, and that you're not going to sleep, and that your body's going to go into places that you've never been before, and you just kind of need to prepare for it mentally more than anything. People, you don't need to. People always ask, it's like, what do you need to do mileage wise to run a 100 miler? And it's like, you don't need to run a crazy amount of mileage to train for a 100 miler. I've seen people do it on like 30 or 40 miles a week. You just have to have the mental capability and the get your head ready, and because it's all about the head. And yeah, other than that, it's like I try to keep it simple in 100-mile races. I try not to eat too much. I try not to drink too much, because those things can cause your stomach to go south. And once you're puking in a 100-miler, that's one of the great ways for you to not want to finish it. I've been there a couple times. So that's usually what undoes me. And it's usually because I ate too much or drank too much of something. And yeah, it's a fun little mental game. And I've even gotten into doing non-race 100-miler type things. So most people in Washington know about the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier. So I've actually done that twice as a through run where I just start and don't stop until I've gone around the entire mountain, and that's about 93 miles of gnarly, rugged terrain. And that was kind of the true, like, when I realized that your body can do so much more than most people ever think it's capable of. Like, if you asked me a year or two ago, or a year or two before I did Wonderland, whether I could do that and be on my feet for 30 hours in the middle of nowhere and only have, carry all my food and only be able to drink natural water, I'd be like, that sounds insane. And then one day I'm just like, yeah, I think I can do this. And I went out there and just did it. And it was like on my feet for 30 hours. And I got back to my car and I'm like, wow, that was absolutely incredible. So yeah, it's a mental game. That's really what it is. If you can get your head in there and be like, I can do this, then your body's going to follow along, as long as you have some level of running experience and fitness. But it does not have to be anything super stellar.
Yeah, I, yeah, I'm listening to you talk about these insane experiences, running a 100-mile race or running the Wonderland Trail around Mount Rainier, and it's like, okay, well, I've walked, or hiked part of a trail, like a couple miles or whatever, and then back to my car or back to the campsite. But yeah, I can envision myself going all the way around Mount Rainier. I don't know about running it yet, but I could probably run a lot of it. But like you're saying, we're capable of so much more than it seems, and so it's like, yeah, I probably could run around it, but it would take me a lot longer than 30 hours, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
at
I
least
know
begin
people
with.
have done it in like 48 or 50, or there's some people that break it up into 3 days. And it's there's a lot of people, especially this year with the pandemic, that went out and did it. So it's an experience that a lot of people are starting to get more into this kind of stuff, especially with races canceled. So yeah, and it's like, what limit do you place on yourself? And most of the people I see who go and do stuff like this do it, and they're not superhuman. They're normal, everyday people that just have it in their head that they can accomplish something, and they go do it. It's like the mind over matter.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I've watched you for a while, quite a while now, and I've watched Super, and I've watched, other friends in the running community do these insane distances, and, thinking, well, maybe one day I'll try that, but I'm not there yet, and then
Yeah,
I saw that Pack Rim 24-hour run, and I thought, why not? I can shoot for that, run as long as I can anyway. And I wasn't sure if I'd make it, but I just had it in my head set that yes, I am going to make it, and I kept going and made it.
that's awesome. Yeah,
24 hours.
that's what it's all about. And it's like, you just yeah, I mean, the longest run I had ever done before I did my 100-mile, or first one, was I'd done 50. I'd never done 100K. And when I trained for it, the first one, people always like, well, people say, oh, you should run a 50-miler before you do 100. I'm like, not really. It's like, when I trained for that 100-miler, the longest distance I ran I did a 50K, and most of my runs were 20 to 25 miles on the weekends. And honestly, you don't even need that. It's like, people say, what do you need to run 100? It's like, you run a little bit, like, I mean, at 30 to 40 miles a week's a decent amount. But if you can do that, if you're doing that fairly regularly, and you can finish it, you can finish it. I have a friend who runs 100-milers, and he barely trains for him. He runs 100 miles, and then he doesn't run for like 2 months, and then he signs up and he runs a 100-miler, and maybe he does like a 10-mile run at some point in between, but he just shows up and does them. But he gets them done. But it is what it is. He DNFs quite a few, which is fine. He's out there more for the experience, and he's okay taking a DNF if his body's not in it. But people just yeah, there's lots of ways to skin a cat, and people do different things. So
Definitely. And I was just wondering, do you have any particular, I know everyone has their own system, their own way of doing things. Do you have your own way of, like, keeping up your nutrition and fueling up for these big runs, or just like any other run, just keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I used to, as I've gotten more experience with them, I've kind of gone to a more minimalist philosophy on fueling and nutrition, and it's worked quite a bit better for me. And actually, I kind of discovered this while on Wonderland the first year. It's I carried people are, oh, you need to carry like 6,000 calories with you. I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm reading trip reports and blog posts, and everybody's carrying, they're saying carry 6 to 7,000 calories, and it's like 6 to 7,000 calories is a lot of food. Like the normal person eats what, about 2,000, 2,500 in a day. So picture like 3 days worth of food, but it's all garbage, crap food too. It's like, how many potato chips can I crush up? And it's like you're carrying a little pack. So I crushed everything up and put them in Ziploc bags. And then you got your goo blocks and Lara bars and whatever else. And the first year I did Wonderland, I was eating. People are like, the rule of thumb I was given, which I've since debunked for myself, was people always tell me you should eat 200 calories an hour in a 100 miler. And I'm like, okay, 200 calories an hour. It doesn't sound like that much, but as you start cramming 200 calories every hour into your body, especially if you're cramming sugar and, junk food, you start to not feel so great. And that's what happened to me the first year I did Wonderland, as I was trying to keep up with my food intake. And all of a sudden it's the middle of the night and I'm at mile 50 or so. And I tried to take a goo gel and I puked it right up. And so I'm halfway through now in the middle of nowhere, and I just threw up and my stomach's totally messed up. But what do you do when you're in the middle of nowhere? You don't have a choice. It's like I better get moving and get back to my car because it's the middle of the night and it's cold. And that's when I learned, because I finished the last like 45 miles of that trip only drinking water. I didn't eat anything. And that's when I learned, like, oh, wow, my body really doesn't need to eat a lot of food to keep going. And so after that, I switched to this philosophy, which has worked pretty well. And it's if you're just eat enough so your stomach doesn't get a hunger pang. And that's not a lot. So the last 100 miler I did back in October, I probably ate maybe the whole race on the order of 1,000 to 1,500 calories. And I was on my feet for about 21 hours. So if you do the math at 200 calories an hour, it should have said I should have eaten about 4,000 calories, and I ate a quarter of that. I didn't drink anything that had electrolytes in it. I didn't take any goo blocks with sugar because my stomach hasn't been handling them well. And I just went by the rules, like drink water and eat just enough to keep your stomach kind of satiated, so you're not feeling hungry. And I did that by eating pretzels, like little mini bags of pretzels I'd carry with me. That's what they had at the aid stations. So I'd stock up on those and maybe eat one of those between aid stations. And I had a little bit of tortilla, and then I was eating M&Ms and drinking Coke at the aid stations, and that got me through. And yeah, I just didn't eat too much. My stomach never felt upset. So I think a lot of mistakes people make in ultra distances in general, whether it be 50Ks or 50 milers or hundreds, is people eat too much. They think, oh my God, I got to eat, I got to fuel. And it's like, no, your body's got all the calories in it that it needs. You've got your fat stores, and your body's going to tap into that. It knows what it's doing. An ultra is not about, do I have sugar to burn? An ultra running is about, can you burn fat? And if your body can burn fat pretty efficiently, you're not going to lose your energy. You might get tired, but you're not going to lose energy. So I've switched totally to a philosophy of like, just eat enough so you're not hungry. And I've thrown all the other rules out the window that I was told, and it works well for me. And what I basically tell people though, is like, you got to play, you've really got to experiment, because different people's bodies respond differently to nutritional stuff, especially. And I've found kind of what works for me, but some people may need to eat more. Some people may get hungry easier, and it's more of a game of experimenting than anything. And that's, as you run more of these longer distance stuff, you start learning what you can do and what your body wants and what it doesn't want. So, and then I don't have any particular food. It's like whatever works that day. There's no rules around it. There's sometimes like M&Ms would be absolutely revolting to me on one day. But a few weeks ago, it was like, man, I just want to eat M&Ms and drink Coke. That's all I really want to do. So that's kind of my rules around nutrition. So it's like, my rule is like, there really are no rules. It's just do what feels right.
Right on. Yeah, I've actually noticed that too. It's like, hearing people tell me, well, if you're going to run these, bigger distances, you're going to need more of this, more of that. And it's like, what I've found for myself and had to cut back on is, taking in so much, because my gut, I haven't run these 100-milers, so I haven't gotten to that point. Maybe I haven't gotten to those points of, even feeling like I need to puke, but, I have gotten to where my gut's just like, oh man, just like feels like a big knot in there, and it hurts so bad, and it's like, okay, got to cut this out. Now I'm used to running like half marathons, full marathons with just a couple sips of water, and that's it, and it's like,
yeah,
hey, I got through and it got me to the end.
Yep. Yeah, people overthink food on in distance running, and I've heard people. There's one story. Some guy was training for a 50-miler, and another runner told him, it's like, well, when you're training, you should go to In-N-Out Burger and eat burger and fries, because you're gonna need to eat a full meal during a 50-mile. And I'm like, eat a full meal during a 50-mile? It's like, I've never ever even wanted to think about eating a burger. Like, I want to eat it after. Like, I've had thoughts, I'm like, man, I can't wait to have a burger and fries when I'm done with this, but I'm not going to sit there and eat a lot of food in the middle of a race. It's just a recipe for disaster. So, but hey, for some people, it absolutely works too. So it's just a matter of knowing what you need and what your body wants. So
yeah, the only time I've really ever stopped for a meal in the middle of a race is during the what's that one up there? Oh shoot, it's up in West Seattle. It goes from
Alki, yeah, the one that runs along the Alki there, yeah.
Yeah. Shoot, I spaced the name of it, but anyway, that one. I forget the name of it, but anyway, there's Top Hot Donuts along the way, and on the second time going, I do the full thing out and back twice. On the second time back to the finish, I'm like, all right, got to stop. So I stop off at Top Hot Donuts, because I'm always on a walk break about there. I take one there anyway, and stop by, get a donut or two, maybe a coffee, and take that while I'm walking.
Yep.
But yeah, I could not see taking in the calories and just the amount of consumption, about taking a full burger and fries or whatever during a race. It's like, I can't even do a little bit, my gut.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's all, yeah, so I totally get what you're saying there. It's all a matter of how it works for the individual. And I was also wondering, so what all do you do for like fitness and so forth other than running to keep your body fit for these 100-milers?
Yeah, it's a good question, Shane. I think there's a big importance around strength training and making sure you're muscularly strong enough to sustain long distance training and the cumulative stress that puts on your body. So I see a lot of people are really good runners, but really good runners, if they're not doing a good strength training regimen, can end up injured, frequently injured, and that's usually manifests it in lower body issues or back issues, like the knee pain, the hip pain, the stress fractures. All that stuff comes from your body not quite being ready to handle the distances you're trying to run and train for. And so, as you know, marathon training is a great example because it's something that a lot of people can relate to. They've, a number of people, most people or a lot of people in the running world have trained up for marathons, and about normal years, you get about 500,000 people a year running them. But there's a lot of people end up hurt in the training process because as they build their miles up, they're not, their bodies strength wise isn't quite ready to handle it. Muscularly, they're not quite ready to handle it. And that's stuff that shows up slowly and cumulatively. And so strength training, I think a lot of people have a misconception around it, what it needs to be. It's not about like lifting weights or getting in the gym and getting on the machines or lifting heavy. It's around functional mobility. It's like, how can you move your body in different ways? And that builds the diversity of strength in your muscles. So that way, when you go run, you have like the strength to do it correctly. And so it's like building hip strength, building glute strength, building your quad strength, although most people have quad strength already. Humans tend to dominate on their front side and their quads, and they let their back sides not do as much work. So I did a lot of strength training in the last couple years, and that's helped me a lot with durability. I was never really an injury-prone runner. Usually was pretty good, but it took me longer to recover, and I'd feel a lot worse until I started doing a strength training regimen. Again, it's not heavy stuff. It's like doing mostly body weight exercises. If you're doing squats and lunges and core work and push up, it doesn't matter. Planking, it's like that kind of stuff. Even if you do it like 20 minutes, like twice a week, it's going to help your body move correctly, and you build the strength in the right places to do that. So that's something that's super important for runners to do, and learn how to move correctly, because most injuries are from your body having some kind of imbalance and not moving right. The other thing that I find super helpful is doing yoga, and it's a good thing for recovery. It's also, again, it helps your body move correctly. Yoga is all about alignment and getting your body aligned in the correct places. And so whether you're doing a vinyasa type practice or you're doing a yin type practice, or I do what's called an original hot, they used to call it Bikram practice, it gets your body in alignment. And when your body's in alignment, it moves right. And so I personally do yoga a couple times a week. I've backed off on the strength training quite a bit because it was starting to be too much for me. But I also have the awareness around, if I start feeling things start not feeling right, I know what to go back to. So those are kind of the two things to moving wise that help runners stay less injury prone. And then it's like the other stuff, it's like sleep, get some sleep, and eat a pretty good diet. And that's, I mean, it's like the three keys to health are eat well, sleep enough, and move your body. And eating well and sleeping well will help you be a better runner too. There's no question about it.
Definitely. I can attest to that from myself, my own experience. And also the yoga. When I was doing yoga on a regular basis, or mostly regular basis, I was feeling a lot more limber and everything. And now that I haven't been doing it, it's just like running every day, and been starting to feel that lately, like I'm getting cramped up a little bit. Need to
Yeah.
get back into stretching my muscles more, and maybe the strength training, like you're talking about, doing the squats and lunges and all that. I remember back in what was it, May, when I was doing the run super distance challenge with you guys. I yeah, it was just like it was a couple days where we were doing had to do exercises with that and doing the lunges and squats and whatever. And yeah, it it's like get done with a run, it's like I don't want to do this, but then you do it and you're like, oh man, oh man. And it's like
Yep.
even later on that night, I was feeling like, oh yeah, that was beneficial. I'm glad I did that.
Yep. It
Yeah,
helps balance, just helps balance things.
yeah,
Yeah, and with the yoga, I had a yoga instructor explain it really well to me, and it's like, it's a balance. It's learning balance between strength and flexibility, and runners don't want to be super flexible. You need to have spring in your muscles, and tightness actually is a beneficial thing to have as a runner, but not too tight. And it's like getting that balance because of the more flexible you are, the more efficient your body moves as well. And so when you're really tight, it takes way more energy to move, pick up your leg. If your quads are tight, it takes a lot more energy to overcome that tightness. So if you're flexible, you can run more efficiently. And so for runners, it's finding that balance of flexibility and springiness. And yoga helps bring that flexibility in and help you move a little more efficiently. So
yeah, right on. Yeah, that's definitely something I need to get back into. I've been thinking about that, and then it's like, it slips my mind, and I just keep on going, going, going. And I don't know.
yeah.
Should just get back into it.
Yep.
Just, yeah. But and so, like, how often do you run? Like, do you have a certain schedule?
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not a certain schedule, but I tend to run about 5 days a week. I do like a couple off days in there. So most, 3 weekdays, and I usually run both weekend days. And but I don't get too obsessed about like, oh my gosh, Monday's my off day or Friday's my off day. It's kind of more like if I feel like I need a day off, I take a day off, and I just that's worked well for me my entire running career. And it's like, yeah, for me, it's more of a recognition of what's going on in my body. And, weekdays, when I do run on a weekday, it's usually I tend to go about an hour to an hour and a half at most. And weekends, obviously, I'll get into some crazy long stuff. And yeah, it's like when I first started running, I used to have a lot of sometimes guilt around if I skipped a day, and now it's like I don't care. It's like if I need a rest day, I take a rest day, and especially it's like you just got to be cognizant of what's going on in the body. And yeah, if I don't run lately, I've been trying to walk. I find walking is actually a really good recovery activity, and it can actually just. I used to like treat rest days like don't do anything at all, and now I feel a lot better. Like if I take a 2 mile walk or something, it's just stretches everything out and helps my legs recover a little bit. So yeah, no particular schedule. I shoot to run. I do have mileage goals, and I shoot to run on the order of 60, 70 miles a week. But again, that's not a consistent thing. That's kind of like an average. So there's some weeks where I'm close to 100, and there's some weeks where I'm down around 40 or 50. So, but in the end, as the year progresses, I like to kind of be in that 60, 70 mile a week range. And other than that, I'm not too worried about it. It seems to happen on its own just from my natural activities. So,
Right on. Yeah, that sounds it sounds sort of like what I've been doing. Is it's like I was run every day, and now I'm just like, okay, well my legs are hurting, or like for the past couple of days, my left knee's been giving me problems. It's getting better now, but it was really hurting the other night after I ran really hard, and so I'm like, okay, I better cool off, and so I just been walking for a couple days, and then yesterday I figured, okay, I'm feeling better, so I ran what I checked it, and it was like I told you 10K plus. I ran like 7.5 miles there at Point Defiance, and
Yeah.
felt great. My knees
Yep.
feeling better. Just taking a couple days off from that running hard and taking it easy, stretching the legs by walking. You know,
Yep.
just gets it all taken care of.
Yeah. People get very caught up in, especially if you're on a training plan, training for a half or a full marathon. A lot of people can get very caught up in oh my God, my plan says I need to run 25 miles this week. And if they run 22, it's like a failure. It's like, it's not a failure. It's like sometimes, some weeks you're just going to not feel it. And other weeks you'll feel amazing. And it's like, it's a long-term thing. It's all going to work out and average out in the end. But if you're sticking to these prescribed things and not listening to your body and you're pushing yourself too hard, you're going to end up injured. And an injury can be something that heals in a day or two if it's not a bad thing, or if you keep running on it, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better by doing the same thing over and over again. And people get too caught up in oh my God, I got to get this workout in. It's like, yeah, not when you're talking about training for something that takes 12 weeks to train for. It's just not. Skipping a day to rest isn't going to ruin your marathon. It's like running too hard for 2 weeks on an injury will.
Yeah, yeah, and that's one thing I've heard. And well, I'll get to that in a sec. But one thing I've heard, and the reason that my knee was hurting the other day, so I walked for a couple days. It's like, instead of running, it's like live to run another day.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of continuing to run on that injured knee and having it hurt worse and possibly, ultimately down the line, hypothetically needing surgery or something, you know, or not being able to run on it at all. I figured, okay, take a couple days, walk on it, and if it's doing better, then get back to the running and, let's run another day.
Yep, it's a good philosophy.
Yeah. And I totally hear you about, not getting caught up in holding to every letter of these training plans, saying, "Oh, I missed a mile. That's a failure," and have to go harder next time. It's like just go with the flow. Do what
Yeah,
comes natural to you.
exactly. Yeah, running is it's a very intuitive activity, and people need to. Or it works better when you're in tune with what's going on, and you just use your intuition. And I've never been one to follow specific training plans. I've never had a coach. I've never felt that it's something I needed. And could I maybe have been a little faster or improve my times a little bit with a running coach? Yeah, maybe. Do I need it? Some people enjoy the accountability for it. I've never really found I needed the accountability, but it's just like a good running coach isn't going to hold you to the letter of any training plan. They're going to be flexible and work with you. And if that's not what your coach is doing and you have a coach, then you probably don't have the right coach. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. And I've coached runners here for a couple of years, and through training program and that we've had in Tacoma. Obviously haven't done it this year with the pandemic, but it's like you just got to give people leeway to do what they need to do and handle what they need to handle. And there's other things in life that influence what you can do running wise too. It's like if you're in a stressful period at work, or you're going through some family stress, or dealing with death, or getting married, or whatever it is, it's all that stuff is going to influence what you can and can't do. And it's like, if you're like, well, I need to run 50 miles this week, but I'm getting married on Saturday, it's like, well, maybe you don't need to run 50 miles this week. It's like, run 50 miles 2 weeks from now. It's like, it doesn't matter. You'll get through it. So
Yeah, exactly. I just had this running through my head, and so far as what you're saying about running, and I'm finding I totally agree with. I come up with this. This just entered my head about listen to the science, but focus on self-awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what works for the crowd. Yeah, some of it may work for me, but ultimately it comes down to what works for me.
Yeah.
When I'm out there, running a half marathon or running an ultra marathon.
Yeah, the most important thing people can do in training is experiment and
Yeah,
experiment with what works for you, what pace works for you, what nutrition works for you. And that's what we always tell our runners who are training for halves and fulls. It's like, you need to, as you get into your long runs, you need to figure out what nutritionally works for you because it's not the same for everyone. It's like some people can run a marathon drinking water. Some people need, I mean, I've evolved through all phases of it. I used to take, when I was running faster marathons, I would take like 6 to 8 goose shots or gels in the middle of a marathon and had no problems with it whatsoever. Um, and as I've run them more and as my pace is slowed, I find I don't need that anymore and I can literally run on water alone. But it's all about experimenting. And it's like when I was in my 20s, my stomach handled that stuff a lot better. It's like I could pump it full of sugar and it wasn't a problem. And now it's like the thought of a goo gel just makes me not, makes me gag. So
uh, yeah, yeah. It's like I was told early on. I was told, okay, now you're running these longer distances, so you're going to need more, and you're going to want to carry this and carry that and carry this and that, and it's like, okay. And before I knew it, my pack was full, between my hydration bladder full of, either electrolytes or water, and then all this food on, all this nutrition on top of that, tons of goo gels and everything, and it's like, get to the end, it's like, okay, dude, I got like most of the goo gel left, half the water left. Okay, I don't need to pack so much, and
yeah.
and then I evolved to that point where you're talking about. I can get through an entire marathon with just minimal water,
Yep.
and so it's just like, just comes down to run.
Exactly.
Not not much outside is needed, just run.
Yep.
But depending on the individual, I guess, for self awareness.
Yeah.
But just definitely be aware of your own needs out there, because you don't want to get stuck out there and, oh no.
Yep, and that's the biggest thing. You summarize it well. It's like be aware of your own needs, and it's like be aware, self-awareness around your body and self-awareness around. Yeah, people forget that their intuition and their self-awareness is probably the most powerful thing they have for not just running but anything in your life. It's like yeah, just use intuition and self-awareness and it'll get you pretty far. You
Yeah,
know what you want and you know what you need, and we get so caught up in all this other stuff being prescribed in our world around us. So it's like, well, this is how you should manage your money and this is what you should do by the time you're 40 and this is what you should do for this and this is what you should eat. It's like, yeah, it's good to have guidelines and there's a lot of science and research around that stuff, but it's like you already know this stuff too. You're into, what you want your life to be like and how to manage things. So, and running's no different.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, let's see. I guess that was about it
Sweet.
for the questions I had. I don't know, and that was pretty excellent. I think for myself, I forgot my notebook at home, so I'm going off nothing here. I'm just going off my memory. And normally I forget all the questions. So I have to refer to my notebook. So anyway, yeah, I just want to thank you so very much for coming on my being on the Zoom call, coming on my show today.
Yeah, man.
And yeah, it was a real honor to have you on here and, find out more about more in depth about your running in this 100 miles. It's like, I don't know, just, I'm still, that 24-hour pack rim 24-hour run that I did, I ran, I think, 57 miles. Spent too much time at the A10, chowing down on food and everything. And of course, a couple times in the middle of the night, sat in my car for a couple hours each time. And it's like, could have got some distance in there, but oh well, my body needed to rest.
Yeah.
Self awareness. And, it's like, yeah, one of these days I want to do 100 miles, but, and it sounds crazy just hearing that come out of my mouth, I want to run 100 miles. It's like
Where it starts, you have to want it first. And I did not want it for a long time, and that finally clicked. So it's something that comes to you when you want it, and hey, you may never want it, but it always starts with saying that I'm going to run 100 miles or I want to run 100 miles. It's just putting that thought out there. And that's where it was for me. It's like I spent, 10 plus years running, and it was 10 years before the thought even popped into my head. And I used to say, never, nope, not interested in doing it. I don't ever want to run a 100-miler. And in 2017, something just flipped, and I'm like, I think I'm ready now. Like I feel like my body's ready to handle it, and mentally I can wrap my head around it. And that's the whole, it's like, once you can mentally wrap your head around it, then that's where it happens. It's no level of training gets you there other than being like, yep, I want to do it, and I can do it. And once you're there, it's like, that's when it manifests and it happens. So it was like, yeah, that was late 2017. It was like October, and finally, I signed up for one in December. I'm like, I know I'm ready to do this, and I want to do it, and I want to see what it's like to run 100 miles. And then it happened.
right on. That's awesome. One of these days I'll sign up for it.
Yeah.
I know even though I wanted to, and I knew that, pretty much anything's possible. So I knew I could run, I knew I could do the pack rim 24-hour run. I still had a little bit of, I was still holding back a little bit when I registered, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'm registered now. I guess I'm doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So maybe one of these days soon I'll register for a 100-miler, and I'm still holding back a little bit, but when I'm registered for it, well, got to do it now.
Yep, exactly.
I may come in dead last and take like 3 days, but hey, it's got to be done.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I just want to thank you once again for, being on my podcast here, and it was a real honor, Gucci.
Yeah, thanks, man. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to get together and go running soon. Maybe not 100 miles.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure I'll see you around Tacoma, Shane. So
yeah, definitely. Somewhere out on the street.
Somewhere.
All right.
All right, well, man. Thanks again.
All right. Take care, Gucci. Have a good one.
Yep.
And yeah, I just want to thank all the viewers for tuning in, and for another edition of Positive Vibes, and I will see you again next Sunday. And with that, stay kind, optimistic, and grateful, and have a phenomenal day and a phenomenal week. And I'll see you next Sunday. Ciao. Later.
All right. Thanks, Shane.